Hey, it's Eric Powell, the Future Mill. Let's talk about Dave Ramsey. Now, if I talk about Dave Ramsey, I think I should holler a bit.
How stupid are we?
Not really. But it seems like, though, that Dave likes to holler at people, and he likes to tell people exactly what they should do with their money. He has 7 baby steps, and he does not go astray from these 7 baby steps. Now, the problem that I have found with this is that the 7 baby steps are actually great. I'm not here to bash Dave Ramsey.
I do not feel like I am prohibited from responding when you trash me.
Because I do feel that Dave Ramsey has gotten a lot right and he has helped a lot of people. The thing about it with this, though, is that the 7 baby steps really are more of a guide. They shouldn't be something that is stuck to, that is so stringent for every single person, because the reality of it is that everybody is in a different situation. You are in a different situation than others, and you know what? You have to decide what is best for you. So what I want to do is take the 7 baby steps. I want to break them down bit by bit and actually guide you on what to do. So let's go ahead and dive right in. The first step Dave Ramsey has is to save $1,000. Now, I like the idea of this because what? It's saving. Now, everybody should be saving their money, but is $1,000 truly enough? This is the concern with me, because if you follow all of the other steps that Dave wants you to do, then you only save $1,000 to start. This is your emergency fund. The emergency fund is used strictly for emergencies. If you have an issue such as you lose your job, or your roof leaks on your house, or your air condition goes out, your car breaks down, any of these things are things that you would use that emergency reserve for. So think about this for a minute. If your air condition goes out, is $1,000 truly going to fix that? Or if your roof leaks, is $1,000 going to fix that? Because remember, then where are you going to get the rest of your money? Because Dave says, cut up credit cards.
Oh no, Dave, I have this figured out. I'm 26 and I've got this figured out. I'm 26 years old. I make $42,000 a year, but I'm going to beat up on old Discover card. They don't know anything. I've got them beat.
So I think as a fiduciary financial advisor, I would always recommend that 3 to 6 months. Now, I get it. People are going to hate on me for this and say, well, Dave's just saying it because from a psychological perspective, save a little bit and then go from there. I do get that. But what I am saying right this second is $1,000 is actually going to not be enough, and you are going to get set back on your finances. You're not going to actually get ahead if an emergency pops up. Number 2, pay off all debt. Now, this one gets conflicting because I love the idea of being debt-free. Personally, my wife and I are completely debt-free other than our home. Paying off debt is a great idea. You should not have any high interest debt for sure. Now, again, where I run into a problem with this scenario is a lot of people have sometimes a student loan, different things where it may be 4%. Now, Dave is wanting to work at this from a psychological perspective. He takes the snowball method where you're going to pay the lowest bill first, and then you're going to pay the next lowest bill, the next lowest bill, and you're going to continue to hammer that out until you have all this momentum and you've paid off all of your debt except for your mortgage. It's a great strategy, but if you have a 4% rate on a student loan and you are investing, and maybe you want to get a 7% return, and hopefully long-term that's what you can get on your money. If you are getting that, you're going to lose some money on one side of this. So I'm not as big of paying down really low debt, though I do like the idea from a psychological perspective, as Dave does, getting rid of that debt. Now also though, this is another thing when it comes to paying off the debt versus investing. If you are not investing at all, some people get discouraged. I've seen this time and time again. It's good to start investing and just create a habit out of it. Now again, if you have 17% credit card debt, do not do this.
Think, people. Think.
But if you are wanting to start investing, you have some debts but nothing crazy, and you just want to get a little feel for it, get started. Just get in the habit of saving some money. I don't mind that whatsoever. Before I go into the next step, if you have not yet, be sure to like, subscribe, and please leave a comment below. Let me know another video that you would like for me to make. Step number 3, save 3 to 6 months in living expenses. Now, again, I went over this on number 1, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on this, but I will say when it comes to the 3 to 6 months emergency reserve, what you have to look at is living frugal during those 3 to 6 months. My suggestion is, because a lot of people have trouble saving this amount, It's not that you're wanting to calculate in any kind of extra activities. This is when things really hit the fan, as they would say. So what you want to do is make sure that you are setting aside enough money to cover the mortgage, to pay the electric bill, to pay the car payment if you have one, anything that is truly a necessity to get you where you need to be and where you need to go, and food on the table, that kind of thing. But it is not calculating in, well, I want Disney passes for the year or all of these other things. This is for if everything fell apart, cut all of your discretionary expenses, anything that you can afford to cut out, and just live super frugal until you can get through that tough time where you're hitting that emergency reserve. Baby step number 4 is save 15%. I love the idea of savings. I think that this is a great method for anybody. But when you were saving 15% of your money, the thing about it is that when you were paying off all those debts, we need to go back for a minute, because I also like the idea of taking the 401k match at any employer while you were paying off debts. Because think about this right now. If you put in $5,000 and your employer puts in $5,000 into your 401k, you just doubled your money. That is a 100% return because of them giving you that match. That's without getting actual returns in the stock market. So I always like the idea of you taking that 401k match with your employer. Now, when it comes to the 15%, it's a great rule of thumb, but it does not mean that this is best for everyone. If you are younger and you have a significant amount of savings, maybe you don't need to save 15%. At the same time, if you are older and you are trying to save 15% and catch up, that's not the way that this is going to work. Again, it's a rule of thumb. I love the idea of saving. I think that 15% is a good rule of thumb to focus on, but you truly need to nail down what's actually going to be the best amount to save for your long-term goals. Also, when it comes to step number 4, he talks about mutual funds and buying 4 different mutual funds. My problem with this is that oftentimes when you go to buy mutual funds, you are buying them with a front-end load fee. That means that you're going to probably pay 5% of your money up front to somebody to do that. So if you took $10,000 and you went and you bought 4 mutual funds through an advisor, they're going to oftentimes charge you $500 up front to do that. Now, also, they really don't have that much of an incentive beyond that because they just made a chunk of money. Warren Buffett actually said, if you don't know much about investing, just go buy the S&P 500. Now, that's a great solution as well. It's a cheaper solution. But then on top of that, it really depends on your risk tolerance. Dave is, again, giving blanket advice because he's just talking and he's creating a following. And it's good to tell somebody to do something, but it's not always the best fit for everyone. You need to know your comfort level in the stock market, because if you put everything 100% in stocks and the stock market falls a drastic amount, then you freak out, you pull out the money, then that money that you invested was never a good idea anyways. So just know that the 4 mutual funds aren't always my pick. I would suggest if you are going to invest the money yourself, do a little bit of research. There's tons of content that's out there. Look at ETFs. Those are always a great option that you can look into. Index funds in general, those are oftentimes a low-cost option. Or if you are looking for a fiduciary advisor, someone who is not going to sell you any products, but instead work in your best interest, go to thefuturemill.com. You can book a call with us. Step number 5, save for college. This is one that I like, that people are wanting to save for college for their kids, but sometimes people tend to put the cart before the horse and they like to save the money, and they shouldn't be doing that for their kids. Instead, they should be saving money for themselves. If you are putting 15% back, that's great. But what if that 15% you didn't start putting back until you're 40 and you're playing catch up and now you're wanting to save for college? Well, maybe you still need to focus on putting more back than 15% to make sure that you are going to meet your long-term goals. I have met so many people that are at retirement age that are long-term going to be a hindrance on their children because they don't have any money, but they made sure that their children went to college for free because they paid for it. So don't be that person. Make sure that you put your mask on in the airplane before your kids, that kind of thing. I get it. I have kids. I love them. But we have to make sure that we're not going to be a hindrance on them long term. We want to make sure that we have the money to meet our goals. Also, with saving for college, you're going to open up a 529. That's what most people are doing right now. They're able to put this money in, invest it for their children, and that money is going to grow and they can use it, any of the growth, tax-free for college. The problem is, what happens when your kid doesn't go to college? Well, then you're going to pay a penalty on pulling any of that money out that was not used for college. So that's a big issue. Now, some people are going to tell me, well, but you can pass it down to other kids, or you can give it to your nephews and nieces. Well, you know what? I love my niece to death, but it doesn't mean that I want to pay for her college. Maybe I could have used that for other things. Maybe now that I have 2 daughters in my life, that I could use that money and set it aside for them so that they could actually get married and I could pay for their wedding or something like that. There's a lot of other possibilities other than just a 529. I like the idea of an individual account where you keep it in your name, then you could gift it to your children later on. Now, there is a little bit of tax play there, but you're also going to avoid any penalties if you don't use the 529. Step number 6, pay off the house. Now, Robert Kiyosaki would lose his mind if he heard this one. That's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He wrote the book, and it talks about your house is actually your worst investment. Why? Because you could have a $500,000 house, but if all of the house is paid for and it's not doing anything, you're actually losing money. Now, yes, I get that real estate does increase over time, but the $500,000 is literally sitting there not paying you. That's a big argument that Robert Kiyosaki has. I'm on the fence with this one, and here's why. Because I do like the idea of psychologically not having any debt at all. You can pay off the house. At the same time, I have seen Dave say this on a video of his, and it really frustrated me. He told somebody that after you save 15%, after you're putting money in your kid's college, then you should start to pay off your house. That's a problem. And again, here is why. If we go back to step number 4, are you saving enough with that 15% or not? If you are, and your goal is you want to pay off the house, that's awesome. But if you're not on track, then why are you pumping all this money at your house when you actually should be pumping it into something that is going to grow so that it can pay you later on in retirement? Step number 7, build wealth and give. I love that. I'm not going to argue with that one whatsoever. That is a great step, and that is exactly where it should be. When you are working along the baby steps, you should make sure that you have taken care of all of the other things that need to be taken care of. But then once you have that and you are building your wealth, make sure that you're being generous. Make sure that you're caring for others, whether you are in church and you want to tithe, or you see charities that you want to donate to, or maybe it's a GoFundMe of someone. I've seen so many people hurting right now, and you could just donate a little bit of money to that. I always encourage people to set aside a little bit of money for that. My wife and I do it. We make sure that we have a portion of our assets that are always going to others and to our church. So make sure you're doing something there with your money to help others. Those are the 7 baby steps. As I mentioned earlier, if you have questions and want a fiduciary advisor, go to thefuturemill.com. I'm happy to help you. Thank you for watching.